Labguy here. It's been a while since I posted a video, so let me bring you up to date. I have several irons in the fire as usual, multiple projects in progress, nothing really moving forward as there's goodies in the mail at all times that I purchase online, and they take time to get here. And one of those goodies has arrived. So let's take a step back in time, shall we? We all remember the famous M1234 P31 CRT. That is so freaking cool. No deflection yoke. What are we going to do? Well, there's a link in the description to a video I saw recently where a fellow built the world's smallest vector monitor. It was very impressive. He used an approximately 1/2 inch CRT, and he wound his own deflection yoke from a toroid core. Wow. And it appeared to work. There was no evaluation of its accuracy or anything, but it was producing Lazy U patterns and other patterns from Jerobeam Fenderson, the guy who's famous for vector music generating. Look him up, Jerobeam Fenderson. I'll try to put a link to his videos as well. So I figured if that fellow could wind a deflection yoke on a little tiny ferrite toroid about that big, well, how about we wind one for this tube? So I got out the calipers and I measured the neck. I did some math. I had to leave some room. You know, the inside diameter has to be big enough for wire to clear. Well, the calculations came out to quite a monstrosity. And ferrite toroids in those dimensions, though available, are not abundant. But if you shop and dig and do your research, you can find really big toroid rings. This one is a manganese alloy ferrite ring for a transformer. It was less than $10. It was less than $10. Took forever to get here. I had to order it probably from somewhere out around Jupiter, I think, or China, somewhere far away. And it took almost a month to get here, 3 weeks, somewhere in there. It's a hefty little ring, and I could either put it in my nose to be really hip and up to date, or I could wind a deflection coil on it like this other fellow did. Forgive me, I'm not remembering the name right now, but he has a channel where he builds vector monitors and repairs arcade games that use vector monitors. It's a very good channel, in fact. I'll leave a link in the description. So we have this. Now, anyone who's ever wound a coil on a ferrite core will understand right away I can't mount this on my coil winder and just spin it to put wire on it. It's not going to work unless I wound it this way, which would be completely meaningless. So the way that you wind ferrite cores like this, they make machines that do this. You can look that up on YouTube. Ferrite transformer winder. So in the classic sense, the way you wind windings on a transformer, on a ferrite core transformer, or any ring core transformer, is you measure your wire out and you wrap it onto a stick like this. So this is American wire gauge number 26 wire, and I went online and looked up the conversion tables for it to find out its resistance per foot. The fellow with the vector deflection channel talks about his yokes being 2 ohms, 2 to 4 ohms. So I calculated for 2 ohms, and it came out to just about 50 feet of number 26 copper wire. And so I wound 25 turns around this ruler. It's a 1-foot ruler. So there's 50 feet, more or less, of number 26 gauge wire on this stick. So when it comes time to wind this, I will clamp it in a holder, and we'll start winding the turns and passing the stick through the core over and over. My wire wants to come undone. So I'm sure that Labguy is going to do a lot of screaming and cussing during this process. Now the first winding will be easy, as I can take the core and clamp it into my bench vise. Like that. So we wind turn number 1, turn number 2, winding number 1, 2, winding number 3. Now we have to take the core out and turn it and clamp it by the windings we've already put on. This sounds like it could be a problem to me, but we'll see. We'll see, and hopefully it won't. The windings themselves won't become too thick in here that by the time I get to the 4th winding, the stick won't fit through. We'll see about that. So I'm basically building a giant version of the deflection yoke that the fellow built for his little tiny cathode ray tube. That is the upcoming project for that. So now looking on my bench, you'll see that I've resurrected an old project of mine, which was electrostatic cathode ray tubes. And there are several things going on here. I have a pile of new tubes that I acquired since the last round, and they've all tested pretty good. And another tube that I acquired since the last round. And it all works. It's not hooked up. I'm not going to power it up in this discussion. And there were 2 other tubes that I had acquired, a nice rectangular one, and this beauty, which is a 1-inch diameter, really long, nice Sylvania tube. And unfortunately this one has an open heating element, and this one has very low gun emission. At full power, full brightness, you can just barely see the spot. So he's out of the running. I recently had to move my oscilloscope, which is up above this, and take it with me out in the field to work on our amateur radio repeater up on top of Mount Loma. And I dropped the scope. I didn't drop it much, but I dropped it down onto this, and I snapped the plastic, and I broke one corner off of this cheap-ass phenolic board. This is one reason I hate phenolic board. But I have to use it for high voltage construction. So anyways, I've Gorilla Glued this plastic and the other corner, the back corner. And so the unit's okay, it works. And we have the Sparkfun scope clock board again. We have my original tiny TV board, which is a breakout board for composite video. You put your video signal in, and it will separate all the sync and the video, and clamp the video for you. It's DC restored, and I have a variable gamma correction circuit that gives you both positive and negative gamma correction. So if you have funky contrast video, or your display has some nonlinearity, you can compensate that out. It also generates scan waveforms at 5 volts peak to peak. It's very dusty. This is an old project of mine. So that's going to be one source of input. The scope clock will be another source of input. And then there are the various scan amplifiers I built and tried in the past. And these drive the deflection plates of the tube. This one is just a deflection amplifier. When I built it, I made some errors in the resistor values. So this one could be resurrected or not. You'll notice the little green guys here. These are my old current source, which I got from a website on audio amplifiers, and they turn out to not be a current source. It's actually not it's not a working circuit in the end. So anyways, those are now obsolete. So I will probably reconstruct this board on a fresh piece of board material. This one, same deal. This board requires plus 12 volts. No, it doesn't. It requires plus 5 volts, minus 12 volts, and plus 300 volts. This board takes in plus 5 volts and plus 12 volts, and generates the minus 12 volts directly with a Maxim DC inverter chip that's a capacitor charge pump, and provides the minus 12 volt bias for, again, these two obsolete current circuits, and the power for the op amp, which in the end I didn't even wire it in. It's not used. 2 transistor differential high voltage amplifiers. Essentially the scan circuits on this board and the previous board are the same, but this guy has this 300 volt step up circuit, which if it had worked out would have been fantastic. Unfortunately, it generates just massive amounts of high frequency noise, which gets into the deflection, and so this project was a bomb also. So I will be building new versions of both of these scan boards. That's the status of that stuff. The tube bias generator here is for powering up the electron gun and providing bias to the deflection plate. So it has a brightness control, a focus control, an X position control, and a Y position control. So that is the current status of my electrostatic CRT work, which will be the subject of an upcoming video. So that is the current state of projects here at Labguy's World, or at least the 2 major projects that I'm pondering working on. Some of the earlier projects, NBTV and others, are still on the bucket list. It's just almost too many choices for me to pick out what I want to work on in each project. I have been working on getting employed again, and being vaccinated, and other time-consuming activities that have cut into my ability to put some time on some projects in the way that I like to. If I'm going to do a project, I want the whole day cleared so that I can work uninterrupted. And so I haven't had many of those days recently. And we have passed, I believe, 2,900 subscribers. Welcome, all new subscribers. You guys rock. Of course, all of my subscribers have good taste, unlike the Cannibal channel, who wants subscribers that taste good. So, if you like the channel, you know what to do. If you know anyone who likes this kind of subject matter of vintage video equipment, vacuum tube equipment, cathode ray tubes and camera tubes, be sure to suggest my channel to them and encourage them to subscribe. Thank you for your viewership, and until next time, Labguy out.